I want to welcome everyone to this live seminar. This is the due diligence seminar for the Multifamily Investing Academy. What I'd like to go through in tonight's seminar has to do with the horror stories of due diligence and how to prevent them. I'm going to go through 5 particular, what I consider to be horror stories of due diligence, and these are mostly, not only personal experience items, but also professional experiences for my clients, both from my law firm and also my consulting practice. But before we even get into those, I just want to kind of run through a couple of concepts of due diligence, make sure that everybody's on the same page so that we are speaking the same language. First off, let me give you a background to who I am. Many of you are on the call know who I am. You're either clients of mine or you're in my master class program, which is our online group coaching program. But let me just, for those of you that are not, I'm the principal attorney for Dobbins Law. Dobbins Law is a law firm, what we like to call in the business a boutique law firm, where all we do is specialize in working with multifamily investors, predominantly on the acquisition side, but also on the financing side. And we really make sure that you're protected through the whole process, that the deal that you're doing is a good one, that it is what you had signed up for, and we take our years of experience and we look over your shoulder to make sure that you're doing everything correctly. I'm also the founder of the Multifamily Investing Academy, which also has the MFIA Master Class Group Coaching Program. Now, the Multifamily Investing Academy is, for all intents and purposes, the educational arm of Dobbins Law. It's our way of being able to reach out to people and not so much on a legal basis, but more on an educational basis, and really helping them understand what it takes to buy property. We are there for our students every step of the way to make sure that they know what they're doing is the right thing. Obviously we've purchased millions and millions of dollars of property. We know how to do it. We know how to do it right, and we also know how to do it wrong. And we want to make sure that all of our clients do it correctly, and that's our objective. We also, as a owner-operator over 400 apartment units and over $20 million in assets, we know what it takes to get deals done. We've done it numerous times over multiple states. We currently own over 400 apartments. We've owned as close to 1,000 apartment units. Right now we are comfortably at 400, and we are looking to acquire more as we go forward. We also, as a result of owning and operating those units, we own and operate our own property management company. That's one thing that I teach our students, is that as you start to get into this business, you can start off with a third-party management company, which is fine. And for many of you, because you may lack the experience, the lenders require you to use a third-party management company. But once you own that property, and once you find out that nobody loves your baby as much as you do, I guarantee you, you will start looking at starting your own property management company, and that's another thing that we do for our clients as well. And finally, just to kind of give you a personal feedback, I live in Duxbury, Massachusetts, right here on the ocean in Massachusetts, with my beautiful wife Kate and our 4 little cherubs, and they're not so little anymore. I have 2 in college and 2 in high school, and the one, let me see, one in college is at Emerson. She's going to be a senior at the LA campus next year, and then also I have my freshman in college is at NYU at Tisch Performing Arts, and then also 2 kids in Duxbury High School. So I have my hands full. All right, let's get started here. Let's talk about what is due diligence. Due diligence is the process that begins once essentially once the purchase and sale contract is signed for the multifamily deal. Now, the due diligence process, in my personal and professional opinion, is the most important part of the process, of the whole entire acquisition process. You have to know how to do this correctly. You can sit there and go to take classes and boot camps and what have you, teach you about how to evaluate deals, how to analyze deals, how to write offers, how to get deals under contract, but when the rubber meets the road, you have to make sure that that business, which is the multifamily property, that business that you're buying, is exactly what they say it is. And I can tell you right now, it is the seller's goal is to bamboozle you. And it's understanding the due diligence process that makes sure that you know what you're doing and that you're buying the property the right way and it is what they sold it to you as. All right? When does the due diligence process starts? And they sit back and wait. And they sit back and wait for the seller to give them the information that they need. And if the seller does not give them the information they need, there's nothing they can do. And that is exactly the wrong way to start the due diligence process. Now, what we teach to all of our students is that the process does not get started until the seller has given you all the information. And now our template letters of intent include the listing of all of the information that's required. So right away from the first time you make an offer, the seller knows what you need. And so when you sign that purchase sale agreement, there's no excuse for the seller not to give you what you need. He has been looking at that list for weeks now. And if he can't provide you the information when the property goes under contract, he's never going to give you that information. And then the second thing that we do in this process is we make sure that you do not write your earnest money deposit check until all of that information is in your hands. So that means if he's going to sit around and do nothing and not give you all that information, you never have to write a check. You know, typically the way it works is when you sign the purchase and sale agreement, you have X number of days to write that check to bind the contract. Well, that's not the way I write my contracts for my clients. The way I write it is we sign a purchase and sale agreement, and then we sit back and wait for the seller to give us all the information. Once the seller gives us the information, then we write the check. That way we know right away whether this guy's going to be able to perform or not. If he can't perform, I'm not going to waste my client's time and money and put it into some escrow account and put it at risk if this guy can't perform. So the due diligence process gets started when the purchase and sale contract gets executed, but we always put the onus on the seller to perform, not us. Hey, there's only one person showing up at the closing table with a checkbook, and that's you. And these people should start jumping through hoops to make you happy. And it begins now. All right, how long is the due diligence process? Well, what you have to understand, and we're going to talk about this in a moment, is all the three different phases of the due diligence process. But typically the due diligence process as the buyer is as long as you can make it. But the seller wants it as short as you can make it. So right away, the two of you are at loggerheads. And that's where the negotiation process has to come in for the first time, is to determine how quickly can this guy get to the closing table, and you say, how long can I hold off on getting to the closing table to verify that this deal is as good as we all think it is. So that is the negotiation, the first part of the negotiation process. Now, typically what you do is you're going to have, and I'm going to kind of jump into the discussion right now about the different phases. You have the inspection phase, you have the finance phase, you have the closing phase. How long do those take? Now, it really depends upon the type of property that you're buying. And what I mean by that is if it's a bank-owned property, you're going to have a very short window to do your inspection, typically like 15 days. And then you're going to have to close in 30. And because that's a distressed property, it's already owned by the bank, and they want their money and they want to be out of that deal as quickly as possible. So the only way they're going to accept your offer is if you give them a very short due diligence process. But if it's a regular arm's length transaction, you're going to need more time, and you're going to ask for more time, typically 30 days, sometimes 45. But it really comes down to what you're able to negotiate. Now, the next phase is the financing phase, and that comes right at the end of the inspection process. So once the inspection process is done, now you move into the financing phase. How long can that be? Well, typically if you have a 30-day due diligence inspection phase, you'll have a 30-day financing phase. If you have a 45-day inspection phase, you might have a 15-day financing phase. And then after that comes the closing phase, which can be 15 days or 30 days. It really depends. But typically you're looking at a 90-day window on a straight arm's length transaction deal to get the deal closed. And we always throw in a caveat to try to buy an extra 30 days for nothing. And if they come back and they balk at that and they want more money, we'll turn some of the earnest money deposit hard in order to buy an additional 30 days at the end of the closing date to extend it, to give us the opportunity to find more money from investors if we need to. So that's typically what you're going to see is the due diligence process takes about 90 days. And the due diligence, as I say, the due diligence is really the entire phase from the time you sign the purchase and sale contract all the way to the closing date. So that's what I call the due diligence period, the due diligence process. And on a typical arm's length transaction, you're looking at about a 90-day window. When does the due diligence phase start? The due diligence phase really starts when you make the offer. When you draft the letter of intent, in the letter of intent are the dates for how long the phases are going to go. You're going to state in the letter of intent how long is the inspection period, how long is the financing period, when do we close. You're going to make those offers to the seller in the LOI stage. So you need to look at that deal and understand what types of terms can I offer in the LOI that are going to get accepted. So if you are making a bid on a bank-owned property and you ask for a 45-day physical inspection, you're going to get laughed out of the room. So when you make that offer, you better understand that I need to put in a 10 or a 15-day physical inspection for the bank. If you look at a particular deal and you say, oh, I need a 60-day due diligence physical inspection, they may look at you and say, no, we're not going to give you 60. It's a 12-unit property. And they're going to know right away that you're blowing smoke. So you need to understand what does the other side think about this particular deal and how the due diligence process should go, and how should I craft my offer so that they look at my offer and they say, oh, that makes sense. Let's take this guy's offer. He knows what he's talking about. And that's huge. And that's part of what we do in the online coaching program is we make sure that when you make offers, you're doing it in a smart fashion so that you look like you know what you're doing. And, as I always say, it's like we provide you with the confidence that you lack. You're on our team now. If you have any problems or any questions, you come to see us. We'll take care of you. We'll make sure everything works smoothly for you. Now, how much does the due diligence phase cost? Well, the process here is to try to get it to cost as little as possible. And the way we do that is we break it up into 3 phases. And the first phase is 2 weeks long. And it's going to happen entirely in your home office. You're not even going to travel. You're not going to do anything. The seller is going to send you all of that information. And you're going to spread it out on your dining room table. And you're going to recreate the financials of that property. And at the end of that financial inspection period, at the end of that first 2-week period, you are going to know whether that's a good deal or it's bogus. And I can tell you, my clients do this all the time. I just had a client last week in the Virginia area. And in this particular case, she looked at the financial information that they sent over, and she looked at it even before she had to write the earnest money deposit check. And the numbers were so drastically different than what the broker had originally proposed that she blew the whistle and said, no way, this just can't be this way. There's no possible way I am going to write a check for this deal because this deal is nothing like what I originally signed up for. So she never even got past that first 2-week phase, and so getting that deal into contract cost her nothing. Now, ultimately, if you get through that financing phase and the deal still looks like a good deal, you need to get into the physical inspection phase, and that's where it's going to cost you money. Now, there are a couple different ways that you can save money, and I'm all about making sure that you do this on a shoestring basis. I know a lot of people don't have a lot of money to get this stuff started. They don't want to spend a lot of money, and there's really no need. There's really no need for you to spend a lot of money. You can have a property inspected by a third-party property management company with qualified inspectors if you agree to hire those people in the event that you buy that property. It doesn't say how long you have to hire them for. But if you give them the business, they will do the inspection for you and provide you with a report for absolutely nothing. So if you're looking at property 1,000 miles away, your best bet is to find a third-party property management company that will provide you with a property inspection report for nothing if they get the business. And then it's only going to cost you your plane flight and your hotel down there in you know, that area that's 1,000 miles from your home. So I'm all about teaching you ways to save money on the due diligence process by not cutting corners, but finding ways to do the job without having to pay for it. And there's so many ways to do that. All right, let's talk for a moment here about the 3 different phases to the multifamily due diligence process. All right, first phase, as I mentioned before, and I've already said these 3 phases throughout the course of this webinar. First phase is the financial due diligence. This takes place at your house, at your office. This is when the seller has sent you everything in the Schedule 1. And once you receive that, if you were using my contract, then the effective date begins, and that starts the financial due diligence process. All right? So now what happens is over the next, and I like to, if you're looking at a 30-day inspection period, I like to say that the financial due diligence process will be the first 2 weeks. So during the first 2 weeks, you are in your house, you are building a financial model. You're essentially doing forensic accounting on this business at your dining room table. And you are getting all the information, you're verifying everything, you're making sure that everything is accurate, and then you're going back and you're reevaluating the financials in this property to determine if it is what they say it is. Now, keep in mind, this is kind of, I know some people might be sitting there thinking that I missed this point, but let me stress this. The one thing that will be missing from all of this information that you receive in your home office will be the leases. If you're dealing with a larger property, you are going to have to go down to the property and sit in the leasing office and photocopy all the leases and go through all the leasing material and make sure that it is exactly as they say it is. So in the first 2 weeks, you will verify everything but the leases. If we make it past this phase and you go down to the property and you do your physical inspection, part of the physical inspection are analyzing the leases and making sure that they are what they say they are. And that is, and let me tell you something, folks, you'll hear me come back to this in a moment when you hear me listen to what the first horror story is. And this is key, all right? So the financial due diligence takes place in your house, and it doesn't cost you a dime. And you make sure that the deal is what it is. And don't be afraid, and I'm going to talk about this in a moment, do not be afraid to terminate the deal at the end of the 2-week period if this is not the deal you signed up for. Don't hesitate, because if you don't, this could be a very, very bad deal for you. All right, the second phase is what I call the legal due diligence. Now, people tend to call it the legal due diligence. When they do, their eyes glaze over. And obviously, as an attorney, I look at this and I think this is the most important part. This particular phase of the due diligence process is just as important as the physical inspection and the financial inspection. So you had better understand what you need to do during this process. Now, I'm not saying that you have to do anything, but you need to know when it begins and what you're looking to accomplish and know who to turn this information over to. Now, typically, if you're dealing with a particular deal, you'll have a local attorney who's going to represent you at the closing table. This is the person that you want to have working for you during this legal due diligence phase. This legal due diligence phase is virtually 95% of it has to do with the title insurance. And you need to make sure that the title insurance is correct. Now, what happens during this phase is that while you're sitting around your dining room table rebuilding the forensic accounting on this particular property, the mailman will show up, and he will deliver you a letter from a company like Chicago Title or Stewart Title or Lawyers Title. And in that letter will be a title commitment letter. Now, when you get that letter, do not put it in your in basket and forget about it. Get that letter to your lawyer as quickly as possible. And your lawyer will draft an objection letter to the seller based upon that title commitment. And if that title commitment is an ugly one and the title insurance company refuses to modify it, it would probably be in your best interest to get out of that deal. I know that sounds harsh, and you'd think, well, would I kill the deal over the title insurance? The answer is absolutely. The physical due diligence is once you finish the financial and the legal, and that takes place in the first 2 weeks, and once you decide, okay, yes, we're going ahead with this deal, then you're going to do the physical due diligence. And this is when you're going to get down to the property and you're going to do your inspection. Now, let me give you some feedback on inspections just so you understand how it works. You must go into every single unit. If they don't have keys for the unit, give them 24 hours to produce the keys or you're killing the deal. If they don't open up the door or have the keys in 24 hours, ask them to drill it out and replace the keys. You want to see every single source of revenue generating product that you are buying. There is no reason why you shouldn't. You must get into every single unit. All right? Now, as far as the third-party management companies going to do their physical inspection, let me just tell you my own personal experience on this. I do not own a tool belt. I am not the kind of guy that gets out there and knows how to fix a down unit or can rehab a gutted unit. I don't do that. But I am the guy who goes through every single unit. I have the property inspectors go out there and look at the roof, look at the foundation, look at the physical plant, look at the HVAC, looking at the pool. I want to report on all of those things, but I will go through every single unit individually. And here's why, and this is what I've found personally and professionally, obviously, what I have found when I've dealt with these third-party management companies doing the physical inspection. When a property management company stands at the doorway to an apartment and looks in, they see a different unit than what I see. They look at that unit and they come up with a checklist of, we need to fix this doorknob, we need to change this, we need to fix this rug over here, this, and they give you a checklist. And the checklist is great, but it doesn't give me what I want to know. What I want to know is that if the people that are living here today moved out the day after I bought this property, what's it going to take me to turn this unit? Is this unit in tough shape? Is it an easy turn? Is it a gut rehab? That's the way I look at the physical inspection of each individual unit. Now, I learned this over time that when the guy was out there doing his whole dog and pony show, looking underneath all the sinks and what have you, he didn't give me the information that I needed to know to manage that property and manage that business effectively. So I made sure that whenever I went out to do a physical inspection, I went through every single unit. And I'm telling you something, folks, once you've been through 1,000 of them, they're easy. And I've been through 3,000 of them. And I'll tell you, you stand at the door, and this is what we go through at our due diligence seminar. I teach you exactly what you need to do when you go through this process. I mean, the number one thing is smell. When you stand at the door, you have to smell. What do you smell? You smell dogs? Do you smell pets? Do you smell cats? Are we getting a pet fee? Why not? Why aren't these people reporting their pets? Second, do you smell mold? Mold means water. Water kills property faster than anything else. So these are the types of things that we teach you during our due diligence seminar. Now, the most important part of the due diligence process has to do with understanding what it is that you're actually doing during this process. You are not, and I repeat, you are not inspecting real estate. You are analyzing a business. You need to look at the property not as real estate. You have to look at the property as an income generating business. And that business needs to show a profit, and it needs to show its income, it needs to show its expenses, and you need to make sure that the information that you are receiving during this process determines whether you've got a good business or a not so good business. So do not be enamored, or do not think that the most important part of the due diligence is you getting out there and looking at every single unit. That is not what this process is about. The most important part of this process is you determining whether you're buying a good business or not. You are not in the real estate business when you're a multifamily. I hope that doesn't, kill a lot of your dreams, but what you're really in is the lease contract business. The multifamily property is nothing more than a factory for generating leases, and you need to verify the quality of that business. That's the most important part of the due diligence process. Now, one thing that I always teach to all my students, to all my clients, and to anyone at our due diligence seminar is you always need to be prepared to kill the deal. You need, the moment you draft that and get that property purchase and sale agreement executed, you also need to be able to you also need to be able to write the termination letter for that deal. You need to be prepared to submit that termination letter to kill the deal and call it a day. I know you've worked so hard to get this deal done. I know you've sat at your kitchen table for hours until your eyes bled looking at these numbers. But if it's not a good deal, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how long it took you to get this deal under contract. It doesn't matter how long it took you to negotiate the purchase and sale contract. If before the end of the inspection period is up, you don't feel good about this deal, kill the deal. And we actually draft a termination letter for you. We have a termination letter in our resources and archives section. You can just grab it. You can just fill in the blanks, and that is what's going to protect you. Because the whole idea here, folks, is not to get into the multifamily business at all costs. It's to get into the multifamily business the right way. I want to see you all succeed in this business. I've made enough stories for all of us. I made enough mistakes for all of us. Sorry, I just read that line. All right, let's talk about the five. When I come down to the five horror stories of multifamily. All right, the horror story number one have to do with what I call phantom tenants. And like I say, phantom tenants can not hurt you because they don't exist. And where do phantom tenants come from? They come from the fact that a seller needs to show a certain level of occupancy for a certain period of time for the property to qualify for a loan. And if the guy is having trouble achieving that level, he will create phantom tenants. So he will report to you that the property is, let's say, over 90% occupied. And you will think life is good because you're getting this rent roll with all these people who are, they're paying their rents and they're good tenants and they're showing up every month on the leases, on the rent roll, and so therefore they're good tenants. And then you take over the property, and all of a sudden these tenants stop paying. And you go knocking on their door to ask them to pay their rent. And you open up and you find out the unit's vacant. Oh, they must have skipped. That's what you hear from the seller. What do you mean? But you said that these people were here. Yeah, they were there, but they must have skipped. Well, that means that you have just lost that money, and you've just overpaid for the property because you purchased a property where you thought the occupancy was higher than what it actually was. And it was all because the seller tricked you into thinking that there was somebody living there. Now, there are a couple of different ways to protect against this, and we go over those different ways at the due diligence seminar. But one way to do it, and this is what we do in the purchase and sale agreement, and during the inspection period, it says that you can go in and inspect at any time while the contract is in force. And if the seller tries to get that to change so it's just during the 30-day inspection period, run for the hills. You want to be able to go in and inspect the entire property at any time while you have it under contract. Because what you're going to do is 3 days before the closing date, you're going to tell the seller you want to go do an inspection. And you take the updated rent roll and you go through every single unit. And you verify that the people are still there. And I'll tell you something, they may not have trashed out that unit, but you will know once you walk in there whether that person still lives there or not. And that's the way to protect yourself against phantom tenants. There are many different ways to do it, and we're going to touch upon several of them. But that is one quick and easy way to do it. Horror story number 2. Okay, commingled bank accounts. I love this one. I mean, remember, you're running a business, and you're running one business. You're trying to buy one business. So why does that one business have several hands in their own bank account? This happens so often, especially when you're buying from a not say unprofessional or less savvy business owner. They have one account. They pay all their bills through the apartment business, and it's just a disaster. And it's no way to run a business, and it's no way to buy a business. So you want to make sure that when you look at somebody who claims, oh, I can't really give you the best financials because we use commingled bank accounts, that's almost an excuse to run for the hills, because you don't want to do business like that, and you don't want to buy a business that way. Now, how do you get around this? Typically, if they use a CPA, a CPA is not going to sign off on the tax forms, the tax returns, unless he has been able to verify the actual deposits, income, and expenses for that particular property. So that's going to be the first way that you protect yourself against this particular horror story, is making sure that the CPA has signed off on it. He's put his license on the line. If a CPA refuses to sign off on it, don't be a fool. Run for the hills. Just don't do it. I don't care how smoking hot this deal is. It's not a deal. Run for the hills. So that's horror story number 2. Now, horror story number 3, deal with assumptions. Folks, if you've come to my seminars, you know how I feel about assumptions. I hate them. Now, I can go into a whole entire webinar on assumptions, but what I want to stress here is the one little known aspect of assumptions, and that's the reserve replacement. Now think about this for a second. You are looking to buy a property from a seller, and you're looking to take it over by assuming the existing note. Now that bank has told that seller you need to set aside $300 per unit per year on a reserve account for capital expenditures. And the guy says, okay, all right, fine, I'll do it. So for the last 5 years, he has built up a substantial bank account in this reserve replacement, and he hasn't touched it. He hasn't spent a dime of that money on the property. Now you show up at the closing table, and you are assuming that note. He has $100,000 in his reserve replacement. What happens at the closing table? If you did not set up the purchase and sale contract correctly, at the closing table, the seller will get $100,000 paid to him. He'll get to keep every single penny of that money. It's his money. And what about you? What's going to happen to you? The bank is going to turn around and look at you and say, okay, pony up $100,000. And you're going to say, well, wait a minute, hold on. No. I'm going to build up my own bank account. And the bank is going to say, no. That $100,000 is collateral. We need that $100,000 to protect our asset. That $100,000 just walked out the door with that seller. Now, you want this property, you got to come up with $100,000 to sit in a bank account on for your own benefit. And all of a sudden, the closing costs for this deal, the cash-on-cash return for this deal just changed drastically. And you've got to come up with $100,000. How do you protect yourself against that? I show you exactly how to do that when at the due diligence seminar. So that's what we're here for. Horror story number 4, broker's numbers don't match. You got to be kidding me. You're trying to tell me that what the broker gives you is not what actually are the numbers for the deal? The broker gets his numbers from the seller. The broker puts on the property package his disclaimer. You look on the second and third page, every broker's package has that disclaimer. It's their get out of free jail card. They can do no wrong if they put that disclaimer on there, unless they're grossly negligent. What's gross negligence in this case? Probably the guy intentionally modifies the numbers that the seller gives him. But typically the broker will just take exactly what the seller's given him and give it back to you. And so all of a sudden you're now get these seller's numbers from the broker, and now you've got to go out and do your own due diligence, and you find that the numbers, the insurance numbers, you're off by $50,000 on the insurance numbers. How can that possibly be? The taxes are way off. How can that possibly be? I'm telling you, folks, you have to be able to use this particular horror story to your advantage, and you can do it. Because remember, what happened is when you purchased that property, you agreed to the net operating income that the seller was giving you, and you agreed to the purchase price. And when you have the net operating income over the purchase price, you have the cap rate. Now what happens is that when the numbers don't match, and you go back and you look at those numbers again, and you come up with the actual NOI, and you get the broker to agree to your NOI, your net operating income, then what you do is you go back to that cap rate that the broker sold it to you as, and the new net operating income, and now you solve for a new purchase price. And you go back to the broker and say, I'm sorry, but I can't buy this property at that price. What do you mean? Well, as you know, the net operating income is not what you said it was, right? Well, yeah, you're right. Yeah, we had to change that. Okay, fine. Now you know that I am only buying this property because I'm buying it at an 8 cap, right? Well, okay, yeah, you're buying it at 8 cap. Well, at an 8 cap, this NOI means that the purchase price is worth X. That's all I can offer you. So I'm revising my offer. I recommend that you go tell your seller that you screwed me over, and this is the new offer. And, you know, shame on you for telling this. I'm going to let all my investor friends know how you do business. And you'll see the broker, whoa, hold on a second here. I'm telling you, use that information to your advantage. You're in the driver's seat. Only one person is showing up at the closing table with a checkbook, and that's you. They better be kissing your butt. Okay, horror story number 5, last horror story before I bring it in for a landing, call it a night. Okay, security deposits aren't ... And I left this blank because I got so many stories about the security deposits. All right, first up, security deposits cannot be used for last month's rent. All right, now you might think to yourself, well, wait a minute, what difference does that make to me? Oh. I had one particular client, who might even be on this call, closed on a deal. The seller was taking the security deposits from the bank, going around to all of the clients all of the residents who were behind on their rents and saying, hey, You owe me $1,000. I'll make a deal with you. We're going to take your $400 security deposit. We'll wipe off your $1,000. You owe me nothing. I get to keep your $400. Oh, hey, yeah, that's a great deal. I'll do that. Sure. So the guy, what does that mean to you as the new owner? It means you just lost the $400 security deposit. You're not getting that at the closing table because that just went for the guy's last month's rent. It just went to pay off past due rent. And I tell you, I had this exact same thing happen to me at a closing table. I was representing the client as his attorney. I know when we use my purchase and sale agreement, there's a provision in there that says you cannot do that. And this guy was trying to do it. And he had signed off the purchase and sale agreement. And this guy was a lawyer. And at the closing table, the guy says, no, we're not going to give you $5,000 of security deposits. All of that went towards last month's rent. I said, you can't do that. It's in the contract. No, it isn't. You show me where it is. I showed him exactly where it was, and it was beautiful because one of those moments at the conference table where I wasn't even there. The closing was in Kansas City, and I was back here in Boston, and we went through the whole thing, and I said, and I just gave it that theatrical pause where everything remained quiet. And then I finally showed him where in the contract it clearly stated he couldn't do what he said he was going to do. And he says, okay, fine, we'll close the deal. But you've got to understand that when you're going into these deals. Now, another thing about security deposits is security deposits are not administrative fees. I'm telling you, folks, this particular thing gets pulled on so many unsuspecting new buyers, it shocks me. Let me explain what I'm talking about. Now, understand what a security deposit is. It's a protection for the owner. It's a way of making sure that the person that's living in that unit is going to behave properly because there's a financial incentive for him to do so. And as an owner who's looking to sell a property to another owner, you have to register that security deposit as a liability on the books of the business. And then when you sell the business to another entity, that liability transfers. That's money that is owed back to somebody if they have done everything correctly. Now, what's happened, and I see this so often in Texas deals, is they don't collect security deposits. What they collect are administrative fees. So instead of putting $200 down as a security deposit, the landlord says, oh no, we'll take a $200 administrative fee. And so what does that mean to you as the new owner? What it means is that $200 didn't show up on the balance sheet of the business as a liability. That $200 showed up on the income statement as income. That means that the guy's income went up that year because of an administrative fee. Does that mean the income is going to go up next year because of that administrative fee? No, that's a one-time fee. Not only are you not going to get that money next year, but you just capitalized that income and you overpaid for the property because of it. And then when the person goes to leave and you purchase this property and the person's leaving and they trash the place, how much money do you have to protect yourself? Zero. So you always want to make sure that those administrative fees are registered as security deposits to your benefit. And we show you exactly how to do that at the due diligence seminar. So, okay, here's my sales pitch, guys. And I'm telling you, there are 25 seats. I have 10 seats left because not only have we already sold out 15, I'm also teaching at the Charleston RIA the Thursday before this particular seminar. And I told the owner of the Charleston RIA that I would open it up to his group, but I have very limited space at the Embassy Suites. And so it's this December 6th and 7th in Charleston is our due diligence seminar. It is 2 days. It is not your typical multifamily class. It is like a law school classroom. and there are no outside sellers. It is, you've got me for 2 days teaching you the nitty-gritty of buying apartments. And by the time you're done, you are going to have a phenomenal understanding of exactly what it takes. And you will understand, you'll be so confident in the process that there's nothing that's going to hold you back. There's no reason for you not to do this business. So if you want to find out more about it, you can check us out at that website. It's charlestonduediligence.viprespond.com. That's our website. You can find out more about the where the event is. It's going to be held at the Embassy Suites in Charleston, and it is the room is $119 a night. It's God, you can't beat it, and you get all the breakfast you can eat. And it's for both those days, the 6th and the 7th. Or if you have any questions about it, please feel free to contact us at the info@multifamilyinvestingacademy.com email address. I'll be more than happy to discuss it with you. This is a very, very intense 2 days. It is not a rah-rah, get-rich-quick overnight type of session. It is truly an educational experience like you'll never have. If you're looking to do this business, if you're making offers right now, you must come to the due diligence seminar. I enjoy teaching it because it is so intense, and I really think the last part of the 2 days, last hour of the second day, I go through a deal checklist where I take you through an entire deal from the very beginning through every single step. And we've gone through this so many times, and we've systematized it, and I share with you exactly what our deal checklist is. So go check out our website. I would love to meet you in Charleston, my future hometown, as you all know. Otherwise, I would look forward to speaking with you. Or if you want to find out more about our due diligence, not our due diligence, but our online group coaching, which is a phenomenal class. You can also find out more about that by sending me an email at info@multifamilyinvestingacademy.com. Thank you, everybody, for a great night. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a lot, and I hope to see you all in Charleston. I'll talk to you soon.